Good morning, everyone. Welcome to all of you. We gathered today to honor the life of Howard Kanetzke. We are here as family, as friends, as fellow church members, colleagues, and loved ones to pay our respects, to express our grief, and to dwell together in the many memories that still give us joy. Thank you for being here today. I say thank you on behalf of the Kanetzke family and also on behalf of our church. I am Pastor Jen Patrika Blesh. I serve as the pastor of Community of Hope UCC. Community of Hope is a church that's in partnership with Advent Lutheran, and together we make up Madison Christian Community. We hope that if you are new here, that you feel very welcome and comfortable. This place is one of the places that Howard called home. From an early age, Howard was playing music at church, and his music blessed these halls for almost 60 years. Even today, Howard's music still echoes in this space. It echoes through the careful playing of our musicians who have inspiration from Howard, from his gentle and lyrical touch on the keys. His music echoes in the voices that we will hear today, singing some of Howard's favorite hymns. We pray that you will add your voices to the mix as well, to lift a holy choir, as some of us did for Howard at his bedside in his last days. I know that nothing would delight Howard more than the music that we share today. A few note of thank yous. Thank you to the musicians who have played already and will play yet during the service. All of these musicians' relationship with Howard run deep, and I know every note is played in honor of Howard. So thank you to Emily Wixon, Mary Bowman, Roanna Brazier, Lisa Ann Trembeth, Raylene Freitag, and Lindy Wilson. Thank you to the MCC choir members singing today, to Lisa Ann Trembath for conducting, and to Jen Streit, who couldn't be here today, but who gathered our choir together and got us ready. A special thank you to the volunteers from Madison Christian Community who stepped up to help this day go smoothly. There were, I think, at least 15 people running around as early as 9 a.m. today. And a special thanks to Christy Williams for coordinating the lunch effort. And thank you to all of you, especially those of you who had to travel from far away to share your heart with Howard and his family. And thank you to those who can't be here today but are joining us on the live stream. A few comments about this service and the space. During the service today, we will have time for sharing stories with Howard. So it's an open time for you. You're welcome to come up here and share a memory with the congregation. Given that this is a large body of people here that is full of memories, I urge you that if you do come up to share a story, that you try to keep it brief so that everyone has an opportunity. If it seems like there's more stories than we have time for today, we can open up a microphone during the luncheon, and there'll be more chances then to share. After the service concludes, there will be a lunch provided, and you'll be able to find seating mostly in our other sanctuary, but also a few seats out in our common area. We have multiple bathrooms, a men's and women's, which is basically on the back side of this wall, as well as a gender-neutral bathroom that is on the other side of our kitchen. You can find additional single-stall restrooms down the stairs and to the right if you need more space. If you need to take a breather, you're welcome to go to our lower level where we have couches and chairs for you to relax and hang out. You're also welcome to walk our grounds where we have gardens and a prayer path for meditation. So thank you again for being here today. I know it means so much to the Kanetzke family. So we're going to now raise our voices together with beloved hymn of Howard's, Sweet, Sweet Spirit, which is in that black hymnal number 293. In this time of prayer, I'd like to share a blessing that is written by John O'Donohue with some of my own adaptations. Howard, though we need to weep your loss, you dwell in that safe place in our hearts where no storm or night or pain can reach you. Your love was like the dawn, brightening over our lives, awakening beneath the dark a further adventure of color. The sound of your fingers at the piano found for us a new music that brightened everything. Whatever you enfolded in your gaze, quickened in the joy of its being, you placed smiles like flowers on the altar of the heart. Your mind always sparkled with wonder at things. Though your days here were ultimately brief, your spirit was live, awake, complete. We look towards each other no longer from the distance of our names. Now you dwell inside the rhythm of breath, as close to us as we are to ourselves. Though we cannot see you with outward eyes, we know our soul's gaze is upon your face, smiling back at us from within everything to which we bring our best refinement. Let us not look for you only in memory, where we would grow lonely without you. You would want us to find you in presence, beside us when beauty brightens, when kindness glows, and music echoes eternal tones. When orchids brighten the earth, darkest winter has turned to spring. May this dark grief flower with hope in every heart that loves you. May you continue to inspire us, to enter each day with a generous heart, to serve the call of courage and love until we see your beautiful face again in that land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped from our mind, and where we will never lose you again. Howard, may God hold you and keep you in eternal peace. Amen.
To God who sings through us. Thank you for the ways your enlivening spirit moves through us, each a special instrument of your love. Together we create the wondrous music in your concert. Come and make music within our lives, dance through our days and sing in our hearts. Your restorative breath moving through us enables us to overcome anxieties, doubts, and fears. Breathe through us, holy music maker, and let your song weave a melody through all we are and do. God who sings in our hearts, we pray to be open to the many ways your symphony and chorus of love can touch others through us to complete the music you write for us. Journeys ended, journeys begun. To go where we have never been. To be beyond our past, moments of lifting up, transcending death, rising in transparent light to the fullness of God's presence. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God and trust in me. You shall not be alone. To prepare a place for you I go, but shall return so that you may be with me in the mystery of rising to new life. Loving one another in truth, choosing clear the many deaths of going beyond self, living in the spirit of one who gave his life so that we might come to know how profound the gift of God in Jesus Christ.
In the hymn lyrics that we read today by Joyce Rupp, it says, "Thank you for the ways your enlivening spirit moves through us, each a special instrument of your love. Together we create the wondrous music in your concert." Now, these hymn lyrics were printed in an MCC bulletin in 2013 from what appears to be a hymn sing service. It's a bulletin that Howard has saved all these years, no doubt because the hymn sing service was of particular import to him, but also because Joyce Rupp's words captured a sentiment that Howard had held dear. Breathe through us, holy music maker, and let your song weave a melody through all we are and do. According to Rupp, each of us are a special instrument of God's love. And frankly, I can't think of a better description for Howard Kanetzke. He was indeed a special instrument, a man of great talent, kindness, humility, creativity, and generosity. Howard was deeply thoughtful and deeply faithful, committed to seeing God's love shared in the world. He played God's sacred melody for all to hear, both literally and in spirit. We all know that music was so much of Howard's life. He took an early interest in the organ, but was told at a very young age that he would have to grow a little taller before organ was an option. So Howard begrudgingly learned the piano in the meantime until he was finally at a proper height to reach the organ's pedals. By the age of 12, Howard had become so proficient in the organ that he started playing at church, even once playing an entire church service impromptu. This, of course, began a long career of playing music at church. Although playing the organ and piano was not always what Howard did to earn a living, it was nevertheless one of his greatest vocational callings. And astonishingly, he still played piano at Community of Hope and MCC into his 90s. One of the things I've learned about Howard in the last couple of months is that he truly had an educator's heart. In his work with the Wisconsin Historical Society, he created materials meant to teach children about Wisconsin's history. He started by creating booklets for fourth graders, and then later helped with television programs. As Howard's work shifted towards the museum, he was still producing content to educate volunteers and create classroom lessons for kids. Howard worked with the Historical Society from 1959 until 1992. Even in his retirement, he was still teaching. He got a degree in piano pedagogy so that he could teach others how to play piano. Now, this bit of history about Howard's educational life is not something that I knew very much about until I read the transcripts of an interview he gave telling his life story. But I can't say that I was terribly surprised. His teacher's heart helps explain why he gave me a version of the church's hymnal with post-it note tabs in the back to note all the indexes so that I could easily find the hymn that I was looking for by meter, composer, and scriptural reference. I still have that hymnal in my office, and I do use his post-it note tabs. Howard was a man of many passions, but high amongst them was his wife, Lucetta. Apparently, all it took was one party where they had met for the first time to convince Howard that he had found the woman who was going to be his wife. According to Howard, however, Lucetta needed a little convincing, but eventually they fell in love, and of course you all know the rest of the story. As a pastor who has witnessed their love from the outside, it is clear that Howard and Lucetta shared a special kind of love. I was so touched when I would visit Howard, even when he was in hospice, and often the first thing that we would talk about was Lucetta. He was so committed, even in his final days, when he was bedridden and stuck in one room, to make sure that Lucetta had all she needed. His love for Lucetta has been deep and abiding and truly remarkable. Together, they raised a beautiful family, Laurel, Neil, and Laura, and they raised them with love and gentleness. We couldn't talk about Howard's life, of course, without including his devotion and love for the church. Howard and Lucetta were amongst Community of Hope's founding members, and therefore also amongst MCC's founding members as well. Although this new church didn't have an organ, certainly a downside in Howard's mind, it nevertheless became his spiritual home, a place he was formed by and helped to form. In many ways, Howard contributed a ministry of his own here at this church. That ministry came in the form of music, no doubt, and many who are here today are here to remember and honor the ministry of music that Howard lived in this place. But he also shared a ministry of generosity, being the primary manager of Community of Hope's Special Fund, a fund which gives to members in the community who are needing support with bills and other financial needs. Howard oversaw the special fund with devotion and compassion, often driving checks all around town, trying to get them to people where they were at. The church was a place where Howard saw his most closely held beliefs come into practice. Both he and Lucetta championed the move to make church liturgy and music more gender inclusive, and they helped make MCC a place where women leaders could be uplifted. Howard believed so deeply in God's abiding love, and what he wanted more than anything was to let that love be shared in community. That love looked like welcoming the stranger, and I've heard on more than one occasion that people came here and stayed here because of Howard's welcome and kindness. His love looked like working for justice inside and outside of the church's walls, and it looked like participating in sacred and beautiful music. I had the profound privilege over the past year to visit Howard regularly while he was in hospice. It's not an easy thing to be in hospice for an entire year, stuck in one room, but it afforded some gifts to Howard that most people don't get. And amongst those gifts included spending intimate time with the people that he loved. I was amongst the privilege to spend time with Howard as he reflected on his life, resolved his personal business, said goodbyes, and even fostered new relationships. It was a humbling and honoring experience to get to know Howard in this way and to learn the kind of person that he has been throughout his life. He was gentle and caring and deeply connected to the God who gave him life. He was open in the face of his suffering, infirmity, and death. In the end, he knew that he was being reunited with the ground of his being, and he longed to be with those who had come and gone before him, whom he missed so much. Howard was too humble to say it, but he was a special instrument. The music he made with the life he lived is one that brought beauty and kindness into the world. He made God known in the people and places whose lives he touched. Howard's music and his life now lives on in us. May we pick up the song where Howard left off and create a beautiful symphony of love. As Joyce Rupp wrote, "Breathe through us, holy music maker, and let your song weave a melody through all we are and do." Amen.
My name is Phil Blado. Lucetta is my big sister. Always has been. Howard, I met him 70 years ago, and since then he's been my brother. I'm blessed to be able to read words by Laurel and later by Laura. So here's Laura. We've been blessed. Growing up with a historian was fascinating. He always had stories about life on his family farm and how things were different. He shared his own interesting perspective. Our family had our own personal tour guide for the many historic sites and museums around the state of Wisconsin. Everywhere we went, he had tales about glaciers changing the landscape, and how Native Americans lived sustainably on the land and cared for our resources. He told us how the fur traders, lumbermen, and early settlers moved in and changed everything. Every place had a story. On our family travels, he liked to stop at local dairies and little cheese factories along the way. We'd picnic at state parks, walk their trails, and climb the observation towers to be amazed by the views. Every summer, we vacationed at cabins on lakes in northern Wisconsin, instilling in us a love and appreciation for the beauty and peace of the North Woods. Howard seldom gave advice or told people what to do. He listened. He asked thoughtful questions that allowed you to consider things you might not have thought of. He had an insightful way of letting you reach your own conclusions, and you felt more peaceful for having talked to him. He connected with so many people, and the ripples he made are still spreading. His kindness, humor, optimism, and his smile are part of all of us. Each of us is a museum filled with the stories of the people we love. Adam.
Hello, everyone. I appreciate you all for coming. For those of you I haven't had the privilege of meeting yet, my name is Adam Kanetzke. My father was Neil Kanetzke, and my grandfather, as you know, was Howard. My grandpa was one of the nicest, wisest, and honestly one of the most curious people I've ever met, as well as one of the best storytellers I've ever met. As a kid, I used to spend weekends at my grandparents' house, and with all the great memories I have spending with him, nothing beats playing cribbage with him. And even though at that age I still couldn't shuffle a deck of cards, I'd still manage to win every other game against him. As I got older, of course, we kept playing cribbage, and I would get to listen to him play piano, practice. And but as at family gatherings, he would sit with me and tell me all about his research into our family history, and plenty of stories about his life, and as well as stories about my dad when he was a young adult, about how even when my dad was a young kid, he was still pulling soda cans out of his room because he wanted to collect them. I will always cherish my talks with him and the way his face would light up when talking about his favorite memories. And to close, I'll leave you with some advice my grandpa left with me after my father passed. Don't feel guilty about having a good time. Enjoy your life, because that's what they would want. Grief is such a strong feeling, but happiness can always overpower it. So for my grandpa and everyone that's come before us, go out and live your life, and always remember to smile.
No, Laura, I didn't forget you. These words are from Laura Adams, who says, "For me, it should be easy to come up with appropriate words. After all, I write contracts all day for a living, and I am not exactly known for being a quiet wallflower. But I have struggled with knowing how to honor you. Saying I love you and miss you every day seems inadequate, even though it's true. So let me share the things I love about you. I love your genuine smile. It always reached your eyes. Your generosity, not only for monetary resources, but for your time, because time is a finite and precious resource. That you had confidence in your principles and who you were as a person, For many people's principles change with popular opinion, and many go with the crowd because it's easier instead of being themselves. I love that you were given the gift of music and you shared it with your piece of the world. I love that you loved history and that it rubbed off on me and my daughters. Your garden yielded such bounty and beauty. We were all the richer for it. I love you. I miss you. You have my whole heart for my whole life. Thank you for the gift of you.
So we're going to respond to those reflections with the hymn, I Was There to Hear Your Morning Cry. So now we have an open microphone for those who would like to share a story about Howard. You're welcome to come up when you are ready. I think we've got about 20 minutes of time for folks that want to share. If you are short of stature like me, there is a little step stool behind here in case you need it. So the microphone is open.
When we moved to Madison in about 1980 to rent this little house on Commonwealth Avenue, next door to Ben Wickler, and his mom, Lynn McDonald, came over and said, "Hey, tomorrow we're going to this place called Moon Beach Camp. You want to go?" Well, I could stay and unpack everything, or I could go with them. So you know what I did? I went to camp. And there I met this lovely couple, Howard and Lucetta, and they talked me into leading the songs. At the meals, they might have been sorry. Remember that one day, there was this one. You might know this. Sing me a morning song. A song to make the day go right. Sing me a morning song, make it last all through tonight. Make it last all through tonight. And if there's anything that I can do for you, feel free to call on me. Lucetta remembered the day. I didn't know I was doing, and if there's anything that you can do for me, feel free to call on me. And Howard did so much for all of us. There's one lesson that I've remembered my whole life. It was over in Hope, and something was going on, some kind of setup for something. Howard walked in and said, "What needs doing?" And that's him. I've always remembered that line. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sandy Asriel, and this will be a quick story about Howard and his music for our family. Christian and Bree, our youngest son, was getting married, and the wife's folks lived in Minnesota. Bree and Christian were in Chicago. That left us in Madison, where we were going to be hosting this wedding. And we were parents of sons, so we didn't know what we were doing. So we talked to Howard and said, "Can you help us with music?" And he said, "Sure." And he played for us. And I have a picture out in the lobby with him sitting at the piano in this gorgeous Midvale Lutheran church. It's just a beautiful overview with a golden cross in the background, and it's so special to us. But Howard introduced us to a harpist that day. We wanted something a little extra at the wedding, and so he came over with us to meet this woman, and Bree and Christian were there. Bree didn't know what she was getting into and whether this would be acceptable. And this woman and Howard played Pachelbel's Canon and other beautiful songs. All of us were in tears. So Howard gave us the gift of music and love. Thank you.
Corky and I weren't founding members of the church, but we joined about 44 years ago, just about now. And Howard and Lucetta were two of the wonderful people we first met. And not terribly long after that, I was running a financial planning firm, and they came to me to become clients and have been all these years, as has the rest of the family. There were many times I would go meet with them at their homes. A couple of times, many times other than that, they would come to the office. After a while, Howard would come more frequently than Lucetta, because she just said, "I don't need to be there." And sometimes Howard and I would get in conversations far beyond just the talk about their finances. Howard was always very careful to know that he was taking good care of the family finances, and he did. And that was one of the last messages I was able to leave him in his final days, that he had done everything he needed to do for his family. But one time, one of the conversations I remembered, and I don't even know how we got to it, but I think I won't go into detail because I want to be brief, but there was a little turmoil going on in Community of Hope at that time, and it had a little bit to do with not any dissension about the fact that we were an open and affirming congregation, but just a little bit about how we were celebrating that at that time. And Howard started telling me a story of when he was in the Army, and and you can imagine, with Howard living into his 90s, this was 70 years ago, and he said one day, all of a sudden, they were told that there were some young men who were going to be leaving the service. And nobody quite knew why, but it became clear within a fairly short period of time to at least intuitive people like Howard that they weren't leaving voluntarily, that they were being asked to leave the service because of who they identified with, how they identified themselves in terms of their relationships with other men. And Howard just told me, I don't understand how anybody can feel that way. And I'd always known that Howard was a caring, loving person, but it dawned on me that this was something that he was so far ahead of many other people of his generation. And I guess that's just one of the many reasons we loved him so much.
Good morning. My name's Drew Long, and my family has been intertwined with the Kanetzkes for almost my entire life. Neil was a close compatriot of mine in my rambunctious adolescent years. One time we were out in this Omni Horizon driving around in the rain and going much too fast and behaving like young men do. We put the car into the ditch, not far from the Kanetzke's house. And we called one friend with a tow rope and a chain and tried to pull it out. It was too far down in the ditch to get it out, so we had to call a tow truck. This is in the days before cell phones. And it was dark and pouring rain. And the tow truck driver came up and said, well, you'll need to call your parents. And so Neil rolls his eyes and calls his father, who lived maybe a mile from where we were, and Howard came out in the rain and looked at Neil and looked at me and said, well, what were you boys doing? And Neil said, well, we were being rambunctious and stupid. And I expected Howard to explode. I almost never saw Howard excited, and he sort of rolled his eyes back and said, well, come on home then, and off we went. The other thing I'd add is Howard taught my dad piano lessons until they were both little old men. And it was such a treat to watch them together playing piano and just enjoying each other's company. And my father was not a great piano player by any stretch of the imagination, but Howard was infinitely patient and encouraging. I'll always remember that.
Good morning, all. I'm Roger Williams, and I remember Howard as a gentle, caring, kind, generous person. And I'll say just three things, if I could, mention three things. Howard and Lucetta were the people who welcomed us into this congregation many, many years ago, 49 to be exact, with bagels and cream cheese at their home on numerous occasions. And it was what helped us to become members of this congregation, and we're so appreciative of that. Second thing I remember about Howard is his care for other people and his way of showing it through our special fund. Our son referred to it as a fund. We talked with him last night. He referred to it as a fund that gave out $50 or $75 to people in need. And we reminded him that it's now more like $100 or $200 or $250. But it was a special fund to help anyone in the community, including members of our congregation, to deal with issues in their lives. And Howard was a faithful steward of that money for decades, literally decades. Third thing I remember him for is, and this is, three of many, many things, but he was on the Harvest of Hope committee for decades, literally decades, and it was a love of his. This is a fund that grants money to farm families that are struggling, and they may have investments in their property, but they run short of money. The cash flow situation is a problem with many farm families. And in any given situation, we would have a discussion about how we're going to respond to an application that came in. And Howard would always be the one that would advocate for the higher amount. Someone might say, well, $500, another person might say $1,000, and Howard would always advocate for the higher amount. A clear demonstration of his love, compassion, concern for other people. And we gave out 1,804 gifts over a period of 39 years, and Howard was a part of many of those gifts, probably the vast majority of those gifts. So many, many thanks to Howard for his life in this congregation and this community.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Charla, and I worked for Oakwood Preferred Hospice. So that's where I met Howard. And when you're in the field that I'm in, when you knock on the door, sometimes you never know who you're entering into, who you're going to meet. And I'm very thankful that I crossed paths with Howard. All the words that have been shared here this morning is just absolutely beautiful. To sum it up, that was truly Howard's personality: calm, loving, always trying to figure a way to help someone. And as the time that I've worked with Howard, our bond became closer, just laughter, a lot of tears, and our share of the love of Jesus Christ, a lot of great conversation about Jesus Christ. Even though Howard was at bed bound at the moment, I've opened up, things that was going on in my world, and he'd open up things that was going on in his world, and he was always still trying to figure a way just to help me out in a particular situation in this moment that he was in. Again, just a great soul. I'm so thankful that I was able to spend the time with Howard and his family, Lucetta, Laurel, and all of your family. We've often prayed together, which was very special. Sometimes you don't always get that opportunity to do that with some of your patients that you meet with, but we would hold hands and pray and laugh, and there was always music every time I walked in. So I'm just, again, I'm thankful and just grateful to be here, just to know a wonderful man by the name of Howard. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
I'm Peter Williams, and the two things I'd like to mention that I connected with Howard Kanetzke on was history and the piano. My mother was a pianist, and she lived in California the last 35 years of her life. When she'd visit us in Madison, we needed to get a piano. Howard said, "I can get you a piano." And we, at that time, lived in the lowlands down by Old Middleton Road. And he dismantled a piano from somebody's house and then reassembled it in our house. When we sold that house in 1984, I said something to Howard, "Do you know anybody that wants an upright piano?" And he said, "Just leave it, it goes with the home." I hope it's still at 5518 Linwood Drive. Some of you probably remember when we dedicated the grand piano, which I think is over in the, this is Blessing, that's Covenant Room, cozy room, big, cozy. So the congregation had a concert with Weekly and Arganbright, 4 hands, 1 piano. It was a wonderful concert. I think that Howard was the one responsible for that, wasn't he? Yeah. And so, of course, I bought some 4 hands, 1 piano music, and my mother dutifully learned how to play that with another friend in California. I have a recording of it. I think Howard really dedicated these pianos, and my mother's name was Emily, and we have Emily Wixon. Yeah, my other connection with Howard was history. I serve on the board of directors of the Dane County Historical Society. Howard Kanetzke was one of the founders of the Dane County Historical Society. And what it has accomplished over the years is in large part due to Howard and some of his colleagues 50 years ago or more. So I'll always remember and have in my heart Howard Kanetzke.
I appreciate this. Well, Joan and I have known Howard and Lucetta for, I guess, beginning to attend the church here. And one of the first activities that we have taken part in with Howard was the canoe trips. Howard was a good woodsman. He could build a fire. He could get the rope over the limbs so that we could hoist up the food so the bears wouldn't get it. But one event I remember was a trip where Howard had decided it would be good to have some sprouts for our lunches. Well, how do you do that? What you do is you take some kind of a stocking and you put some sprout seed or whatever it is into it, and you tie it to the stern of the canoe, and you just go on with the trip. And sure enough, in good time, we had sprouts for supper. And he was just all full of stuff like that. You know, you really couldn't tell him that he couldn't do anything, because the fact is that Howard could do it. And he, I worked with him also with the special fund program that we have in the church. And you really had to admire the compassion that he felt for people who needed money for gas, people who had needed money for rent so that they would have a place to stay any number of emergencies like that, that he would jump in the car and take a check to somebody with it. And he just do it with a kind of joy that was. And the other thing I want to mention doesn't have much to do with anything, except that it reminds me that Howard had a good sense of humor. He really did. I remember one event when we had been to breakfast on Sunday morning, which we have been doing after church for a number of years with Howard and Lucetta. And it was over in Middleton, just across from the bank. You know where that is? And on the other side of it is a Catholic church. And we had a good breakfast. We walked out into the sunshine, and Howard looked at the view, at the aspect there, and the church was right behind the bank, and its cross loomed above the bank. And Howard looked at it. I'm sure Jesus was looking at it also, but Howard looked at it and he said, "Jesus saves."
I think we'll leave it on that good note. If there was anyone today who still has a story that you're itching to share, just come find me after the service and we'll make space during the luncheon for you to share some more stories.